So in this the subtopic is the diversity in the living world. In our daily life, every day we might be observing different types of living organisms. So that is what the living organisms does they exhibit similarities or differences, means we can expect both the similarities and also the differences. Based on the differences, we are able to identify what's the name of the plant or what that plant it is. That is what we call it as a biodiversity. Bio means living organisms, diversity means the changes or the differences that are present between the living organisms. So here, based on this biodiversity, we can say that every day we can see many macroscopic organisms, and there are many microscopic organisms which are present around us, but we cannot see with our naked eyes. That is, we can also expect to have the microscopic organisms along with the macroscopic organisms. So that is what in the same way we can say there is a lot of variation that can be observed between unicellular to the multicellular organisms. When it is coming to the multicellular organisms, we can say that from lower to the higher organisms they are present. That is, from some of the algae are macroscopic and some of the fungi are macroscopic. In the same way, when it coming to the bryophyta onwards, bryophyta, pteridophyta, gymnosperms and angiosperms, there we can see that the plants are, majority of the plants are macroscopic and we can see with our naked eyes. When it is coming to unicellular forms, that is like in bacteria, viruses and some of the algae group and some of the fungi. So some of them are unicellular in their nature. Likewise, there is a lot of difference in the size, structure, form, and also we can find some differences in the part of their mechanism or the chemical reactions or metabolism. So that's what we can see, a diversity in the structure, shape, form, size and variation. So likewise, because of all these variations, we cannot differentiate each and every plant, or we cannot able to identify each and every or remember each and every character related to the particular organism. So that's what we can say, that diversity can be seen in the living species. So based on those diversities, the scientists had identified that nearly 1.7 to 1 millions of species are existing in this world. So based on the similarities and the differences particularly we can say, so they have been classified into 1.7 to 1.8 millions of living organisms. So they are exhibiting at least one or few or sometimes many number of differences in their various mechanisms or structure, shape, form or the functions. So that is what the interaction related to the diversity in the living world. In order to differentiate the characteristic features that we observed in the living organisms, so here we talk about the taxonomy or systematics. That is the classification of the group of organisms based on their differences. In this aspect, here first thing what we do is the identification of the organism, and after that how it will be identified means based on the characteristic features. That is what we call it as a characterization first, then based on the characters we will identify the plant. And whenever we identify a plant or an animal, so we we prefer to give some name to that one, we call it as a nomenclature. And after giving some name to it, so here that is having kept in particular group or category, so we call it as a classification. So these are the four basic things or basic aspects which are been present in the taxonomy, where we can deviate or differentiate the group of plants or the animals based on the differences and keeping or placing them into different groups or the categories. So let us start with the first one, the characterization. Based on the characters, we able to identify the plant. That is what it may be the physical appearance of the organism, where depending upon the shape, size, structure and form of the stem, leaf, flowers and fruit. So that is what the characterization based on the nature or the form, we can say external features have been identified or been used for identification of the. So that's what we call it as a characters or characteristic features from based on which we can say that, oh, this is a particular character present in that particular organism. So based on that character, so we can say this may be identified as a so and so plant. That is what we call it as a characterization, helping in the other aspects, that is next aspect, that is called as a identification. Second one is the identification. So as we said that different types of plant species we are been observing in our daily life. In that aspect, when we observe that a plant for the first time, if we observe a plant for the first time, we does not have idea that whether that plant have been earlier had been identified by any other person or not. So for that purpose, we will take the help of some taxonomic aids which are helping in the identification of that particular plant species. So here how can we identify a plant means based on the characters. That's what I say that characterization is the basis for the further aspects like identification. So based on the characters, we can say, so this particular type of character is present in that particular plant species. So till now no other plant had been identified by me or by that particular person, so that he may consider that to be a new plant. But by using the taxonomic aids, we can say that so and so plant may be either earlier identified by some other person. So that is the way how we are going to identify the plants, by using some taxonomic aids like herbaria, taxonomic keys, manuals, monographs. All these are helping in the identification, that is what we call as a taxonomic keys. So once we come to know that no other person have been identified plant with that particular type of characteristic features, now we can say that the new plant have been identified by so and so person. That is the way how the identification can be done. Or for example, if that plant, if he had come to know that there is one more plant that have been identified by some other person with the same type of characters, then we can say that it is not a new plant, may be identified by some other person. That is way how this identification can be done by using various types of taxonomic aids. In that next aspect is a nomenclature. Once a plant have been identified, so that had to be given some particular name based on the characters features or based on some other characters. So that is what naming of the plant is called as a nomenclature. So actually here many scientists come to say that some system have to be followed for naming the plants, because earlier they used to have the common names in the vernacular languages, but that vernacular language or the common names may lead to lot of confusion, because the name may be known in particular area, but the same name cannot be identified or may not be useful for identification of the plant species in some other area. That is what the difference which will lead to the confusion. So in order to wind up all that confusion, the scientists, they say that the particular specific name should be there, which should be universally accepted by all the scientists or botanical scientists. So in this there is one system called as a binomial nomenclature, that is naming of the plant by using two words is called as a binomial nomenclature. This system was first introduced by Gaspard Bahin, but it have been developed, and the credit for development will goes to the scientist called as Carolus van Linnaeus, and he is the person who developed the system, and he said that this have been made popular. This system had been made popular by this Linnaeus scientist, and according to the binomial nomenclature, here two words are present in the scientific name or the biological name of the plant, and those two words are called as a genus or generic name. The second one is called as a species or a specific epithet. Here the genus is the first word, and this word will be in the noun form. and it should start with a capital letter. Whereas the species or the specific epithet will be in the adjective form. So adjective form means it will describe the characteristic feature of that particular plant species, and it should start with a small letter. So like apart from this one, when you are writing the name, like if let's take the example of mango. The species and genus name are Mangifera indica. In this, Mangifera is a genus where we are starting with the capital M, whereas indica is a specific epithet where we are starting with the small letter. That's what the naming of the organism or a plant with a two words is called as a binomial nomenclature, which is universally accepted by all the botanical scientists present in the world. This type of system is called as a binomial nomenclature. And one more thing, that the words are derived from the Latin language. The words which are useful for scientific name are derived from the Latin language. So this is what the binomial nomenclature which helped in the establishment of the correct way of naming of the plant species. The botanical scientists present in the world will form a International Botanical Congress for every 5 to 10 years. So in this International Botanical Congress, all the well-known, the famous, world-famous botanical scientists will assemble, and they will frame some principles. So here these principles have to be followed for naming of the or writing about the related to the binomial nomenclature. So these principles are called as a ICBN rules, or it is called as International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. So here these principles are framed in the form of ICBN rules. This is called as International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, where initially the principles were proposed, and thereafter for every 5 to 10 years the Congress is being held, where the changes which are taking place in the due course of time will be discussed, and if any possibility of change is there, they used to change, or they used to implement the changes in these principles. That is the way how this ICBN is helping in giving some particular specific characteristic features of the principles related to the binomial nomenclature. Now let us see what are the principles which have been there in the ICBN rules. Every plant should be given one specific biological or scientific name. While the biological or scientific name is given, so they have to follow binomial nomenclature. They have to follow binomial nomenclature system. And here, as we know that binomial nomenclature means which contains the genus and species. Then whenever the binomial nomenclature is used, the name which is used in the binomial nomenclature should be derived from Latin language, or the origin may be in any other language, or origin may be in any language, but the name should be derived from the Latin language. Or we can say that the genus word and the species word should be taken from the Latin language. Third one is here, when published, when the binomial nomenclature is published, so they have to publish in italics. Or when we are written, handwritten, the scientific name should be underlined. In order to, what is the need of publishing in italics or written, when it is written, what is the need of underlining means, in order to specify that it have been derived from the Latin language. So in order to specify that nature, we have to go for italics or underlining the scientific name. And fourth one, abbreviation form of the author's name at the end of scientific name or the biological name or species name. So here, who is the author? The person who had given that name to that plant is called as the author. For example, let us take Pisum sativum. So here after that we can write L or LINN. So here Pisum is a genus and sativum is the species name of garden pea plant, and the name was first given by Linnaeus scientists. That's why the name of that Linnaeus scientist have been abbreviated at the end of the scientific name. So let us take one other example like Mangifera indica. So Mangifera indica, already we said it's a scientific name of mango. So Mangifera indica, which have been separately underlined in order to specify that the words have been derived from the Latin language, separately underlined, and this is a genus, this is species, and here the name of the scientist is abbreviated, that is scientist name is Linnaeus, who first given the name to that plant. So Mangifera indica was given by Linnaeus scientists. This is a way how these rules have been followed while giving the name to the plant species. The next aspect of the taxonomic categories is the classification. Here, after giving names, so whatever the group of plants that have been identified, naming, and there we can expect or we can observe some similarities and also some differences. So based on the similarities and differences, what we can do is whatever the group of plants which have the similarities, they have been kept in one category or one group, and whichever have the differences, they have been separated or segregated and kept in the different groups which are showing the some similarities with other group of organisms. That is what we call it as a categorization, or placing the plants based on the differences into different groups is called as a classification process. So let us take some examples here like dog, cats, paddy, wheat. So all these are the living organisms. Maybe they are living organisms, but they show a lot of difference in their characteristic features. So these two are the animals and these two are the plants, and these two belongs to the mammals. So and these two belongs to monocotyledons. So likewise we can find some differences between the living organisms also. Based on those differences, we can say that they have been kept in different groups of categories. So likewise here mammal is one category and monocotyledons is one other category. Likewise they have been kept into different categories or different taxons also. We can call these as a categories or different taxa, which are helping in grouping them into various groups, which help in identification or which can help in the differentiating them into various characters. Because here let us take the dog and cats have many differences. So despite of differences, why they have been kept under mammals means maybe the further classification is there where they have been deviated, and that is mammals have been further classified into various groups. Likewise the deviation is present where they have been kept under different categories. So likewise the classification is done in the entire aspect of the taxonomy. Likewise we are saying that four aspects are there. One is characterization, identification, nomenclature, and the classification aspect. So in the systematics we said that a systematic arrangement of the things. Here we are arranging the categories or the groups in a systematic manner. So based on the similarities and the differences, that is what we the classification of the plant systematics include.